Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Ricky Gervais accused of being a transphobe for saying women should not be forced to wax male genitals. And quoting Ricky Gervais as a transphobe who barely disguises his bigotry as feminism. That's from a tweet. This is from the Daily Wire. You might be wondering, why are you bringing up a story that's a few days old? It's because there have been developments in this, particularly with Jessica Yaniv, who is the man in question, who wants his penis waxed and is annoyed that women won't do it. And it essentially comes down to where the civil rights of the 60s has finally got to. Because you're saying, well, okay, you can't discriminate against people based on these protected characteristics, as in what you do as an individual is no longer down to you, it is down to government intervention. So we're going to say the kinds of people you can do business with, we're going to say what you have to do for people, which I'm against in its entirety. I know that Dr. John B. Peterson said, people should be forced to do things, and was then questioned, what about the civil rights movement? To which he said, maybe I was wrong about that. I don't think he was in the first place, at which point I think he's wrong now, but the whole point is then it's down to the individual, it's down to that business, whatever. I have heard the argument that back before that ruling was passed, if you were a black guy in America, maybe travelling and trying to get a place to stay for the night, it was very difficult because a load of places said no blacks allowed. I do understand that. I would think, okay, so maybe it needed to be in place in order to then change the culture, and now the culture has been changed sufficiently for it to now be revoked and go back to free market laissez-faire, if you will, as Austrian as you can get it. But I would have thought, well, hey, if people are passing through a popular town for a night stop and nobody there is allowing blacks to stay, then there's one guy who says, blacks can stay here, then they can obviously charge more because nobody else is going to accept them. If you then have people saying, hey, we're going to boycott you because you're allowing blacks, it's like, cool, then I'll only be having blacks stay here, I'm still doing well. If they then say, yes, well then we're going to attack your property, it's like, cool, now you're breaking the law, and that's where the law comes in. So, you're going to pay for your crimes. I would have thought it would be that simple, but perhaps I'm wrong. But this is where we've now got it, because if you can't discriminate based on sex, and if trans people get specific privileges, to use that terminology, then this is of course where we're going to end up. So it's saying comedian Ricky Gervais has apparently stirred the pot for questioning whether women should be forced to wax a biological man's genitals. And obviously he is an offensive comedian, and his comedy and own opinions do not correlate all that closely. His main thing is, of course, animal rights, and he's hugely against animal cruelty. That's fine, more power to him. And obviously his jokes are not his own opinions. One of the examples he gave in Sam Howe's podcast was saying in Africa someone has to walk 3 miles a day just to get clean water. It's like, move. Or Stephen Hawking, he was really pretentious, wasn't he? He's from England, but he's speaking with that American accent to sound better. Yeah, that kind of thing. So saying, in response to the recent controversy out of Canada, where a man who identifies as a woman has sued a beauty parlour for refusing to wax him in the testicular area, Gervais laid the smackdown on the woke scolds for suggesting that anyone has a human right to have his or her genitals touched by another person. To quote, how do we get to the point where women are having to fight for the right to choose whether they wax a big old hairy cock and balls or not? Gervais tweeted, it is not a human right to have your meat and two veg polished. Do it yourself. So other tweets then. Ricky Gervais is a transphobe who barely disguises his bigotry as feminism. Real feminism includes all women, including trans women. Surely real feminism also covers a woman's right to not have to wax someone's knob and bollocks if they don't want to, Gervais responded. Ricky Gervais will die at some point in our lifetime, just something to cheer you up this morning. Is anyone really surprised that Ricky Gervais, who made a living out of cruel humour that always required someone's humiliation, his own or others, has turned out to be a TERF, trans-exclusion heretical feminist? His humour is not that different to Glenna's. It's normally his own detriment, or he would be big-headed, in which case, well, again, the joke's still on him. Later Gervais, one of them was saying with the Icelandic explosion of Reykjavik, the volcano, say a load of flights were grounded, but he still went to Ireland to do his gig, which cost him a great deal because, 'cause he had to take a helicopter there in order to do the gig. That's how good he is. I mean, 'cause he had to take a helicopter there in order to do the gig. That's how good he is. I mean, 'cause he had to take a helicopter there in order to do the gig. That's how good he is. I mean, 'cause he had to take a helicopter there in order to do the gig. That's how good he is. I mean, 'cause he had to take a helicopter there in order to do the gig. That's how good he is. I mean, 'cause he had to take a helicopter there in order to do the gig. That's how good he is. I mean, 'cause he had to take a helicopter there in order to do the gig. That's how good he is. I mean, 'cause he had to take a helicopter there in order to do the gig. That's how good he is. I mean, 'cause he had to take a helicopter there in order to do the gig. That's how good he is. I mean, 'cause he had to take a helicopter there in order to do the gig. That's how good he is. I mean, 'cause he had to take a helicopter there in order to do the gig. That's how good he is. I mean, 'cause he had to take Could have got the ferry, but that would mean meddling with the commoners. Nah. It's that kind of thing. Gervais got the last laugh, when he tweeted best headline ever in response to Ricky Gervais called transphobe for defending women refusing to wax trans women's penis. And it's fun then when you tweet this stuff out and you realise, well, everyone else realises, what the fuck is going on here? And those people are thinking, but we're doing the right thing, aren't we? Tell us, Echo Chamber, tell us we're doing well. Yes, of course, fellow Echo Chamber member. You're doing amazingly well. It's everybody else who's bad. We should block them off. Oh, we seem to have created a pen where there are just a few dozens of us. Literally dozens. Cool. For its turf. Good. But, self-described champagne socialist. From the Sandhouse podcast. This says from the Spectator, why we can't ignore the case of Jessica Yaniv. And it says the case of Jessica Yaniv, born Jonathan Yaniv, who has filed 16 complaints with the Human Rights Tribunal in British Columbia against female beauticians who refused to provide him with an intimate wax. These are the waxes who only tend to women, whose expertise is in the waxing of women's intimate areas, and whose preference is to wax women. So when a person who has a penis and testicles, as Yaniv does, comes along and says, wax me, they said no. But of course he's taking it to the tribunal. And we do have from Summit News, Paul Joseph Watson's deal, and here we have the bloke. And I'm not in Canada, so I can call him a bloke. Cool. That we have this tweet saying, Jessica isn't powerful. Well, this business that I'm taking to the British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal on Friday no longer exists after I let the landlord know about it. But, and the tweet was accompanied by a photo showing the store with the shutters down. Yaniv has denied the messages, saying that according to a report by the Post-Millennial, he has also once sent predatory messages of a sexual nature to a 14-year-old girl on Facebook. Yaniv's alleged victim, Jessica Rumpel, has filed a child exploitation complaint against Yaniv with Cybertip, an organisation that combats the sexual exploitation of children. And it's one of these things where often these people are just craving power, and from what I heard, and get ready for a juicy conspiracy, is that paedophilia is much more widespread than anybody would like to admit. The estimates I've heard from people, I suppose, in the know, as in the police force, say about 5% of people would be responsible for paedophilia of some sort or another, which is a horrific number. It's not, 0.0 something, but it's actually an integer. It's 5%. And their reasoning for it, from what they've seen, has been it's for power. It's not sexual, it's just, if I'm in this position of power and I can do these things, how much can I get away with? And therefore they're drawn to something that is a societal taboo. They don't really care for the act itself so much, but just pushing the boat out as far as they can go. And so it seems to be a similar thing here, that somebody just wants to do something and they seem essentially evil. And that would be why they're trying to do these things, to have an impact in the world, that it's easier to destroy than it is to create. And that's their desired outcome, to have a change in the world. And they've realised, well, I can take things down instead of build things up. It's much easier. Why don't I do that? Not realising that obviously that's a failed tactic, in that people are only going to hate you in the long run, and you will end up worse than you did before. But anyway, to leave this on a positive note, that's why I encourage you to leave your legacy, make something that's worth living for. Say, winners and losers are a dime a dozen, but nobody can judge effort. And it's that kind of thing, that you should do what is true to yourself. Build something that you can be proud of, that your family can be proud of, your children be proud of, your friends be proud of. Your friends be proud of. Society, community, your town, your church, whatever it is. Do something that creates a positive, lasting impact on the world. Do what you can for the world. People will love you, be grateful for it, and you'll feel much better because you're having a positive impact on the world. That's it for now. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Have a good evening.